This happened a few years ago. I was 33 and working as a freelance photographer. I thought I needed a break from the city to find some inspiration in nature. So I decided to go camping in the Cumberland Wilderness. I had camped before, so I thought I knew what I was doing. I set up my tent by a clear lake, surrounded by tall trees. It was peaceful. Maybe too peaceful. I remember sitting by the water, listening to the leaves rustle in the wind. It felt nice to escape the city. But I can't shake what happened next. Around midnight on the first night, I heard something outside my tent. It was rustling. I thought it might be an animal. I grabbed my flashlight and peeked outside. At first I saw nothing. Then a shadow moved. I caught a quick glimpse of a figure before it disappeared into the trees. I thought maybe I was just imagining things. The next morning I noticed my camera bag was missing. I searched everywhere for it. I found it in the afternoon, tucked behind a bush near the lake. That made me uneasy. I thought I must have misplaced it. But later that night, I heard a humming sound. It started soft, like a lullaby drifting through the woods. It kept me awake. I felt like I was being watched. As the days passed, I recalled some local stories about the wilderness. Some said it was cursed. I didn't believe that, but I started to feel paranoid. Strange footprints appeared around my campsite. They seemed to lead nowhere. I tried to follow them, but they just stopped. One evening I took a night walk to clear my mind. The moon was bright, casting shadows everywhere. The woods felt alive, not in a comforting way. I could hear that humming again. It was louder now, and it made my skin crawl. I turned back toward my tent, but the sound followed me. Then I saw the shadowy figure again. It stood at the edge of the trees, just watching. I froze. It was tall, maybe too tall for a person. I think I called out, but my voice was shaky. I thought I saw it tilt its head. Cold crept up my spine. When I finally turned to run back to my tent, I tripped. My flashlight flickered, and I thought I heard footsteps behind me. My heart was racing. When I looked back, there was nothing there. The next morning, I packed quickly. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched or maybe followed. I left without looking back. I couldn't explain what happened out there. Those strange encounters stayed with me. What was that figure? What was making that humming sound? The wilderness holds its secrets, and some remain forever unexplained. After a restless night, I returned to my life back in the city. The crowds felt oppressive, the noise jarring. Each time I closed my eyes, I was back at the edge of those trees, the shadow watching, the hum echoing in my ears. I tried to put it behind me, but my photos from the trip only served to remind me. I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that clung to me. I avoided editing the images for weeks, but eventually I forced myself. I hoped capturing the beauty of the wilderness might wash away the fear. While editing, I came across one photo that made my breath hitch. In the background of a landscape shot behind the trees, I saw it again, the figure. It was faint, almost as if it were blending into the darkness of the woods. My heart raced. Was it there the whole time? I didn't see it when I took the picture. What puzzled me further was how I had never noticed during the trip. I zoomed in and squinted at the image. The figure had an elongated shape, as if it were too tall to be fully human. I felt that same cold sensation creeping back. Determined to get answers, I reached out to a local ranger I'd met before my trip. His name was Jake, an old-timer familiar with the area. I told him about my experience, careful not to sound overly dramatic. "Yeah, the Cumberland can be a strange place," he said gruffly on the phone. "You ain't the first to have weird experiences out there. People call it a cursed land, but I think it's just got its secrets." His casual attitude made me uneasy. "What kind of secrets?" I asked. "There's rumors about a creature. Folks say it roams the woods at night watching. Some even say they've heard it hum." I swallowed hard. "Humming, like a lullaby?" "That's right. and it can draw people in. Best to stay away after dark." I thanked him and hung up, my mind racing. Was that what I had heard? Then it struck me. I could go back, take more pictures, document what I experienced. By the end of the week I had everything packed and was driving back to the Cumberland Wilderness. I felt a mix of excitement and dread. I parked at the same spot, heart pounding. It looked the same, yet different somehow. The trees felt taller and more imposing. I set up my tent by the lake, doing my best to shake off the unease. As night fell, I ventured out again, armed with my camera and a flashlight. The air was thick with tension, a silence deeper than before. I walked the perimeter of my campsite, listening intently for any sound. And there it was, the humming, faint yet unmistakable. I was ready this time, determined not to be afraid. Then the humming grew louder, and the temperature dropped. I stopped in my tracks. That's when I saw it again, emerging from the shadows. The figure was closer now, clearer. My breath caught in my throat. Instinct kicked in, and I raised my camera, snapping a picture even as a wave of panic washed over me. The last thing I remember was that sickening feeling as the figure began to move. Then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, everything was blurry at first. I blinked a few times, trying to clear my vision. The shadows around me merged into familiar outlines, the trees, my tent, the flashlight still clutched in my hand. But the humming was gone. Panic surged through me. Where was the figure? I scrambled to my feet, searching the shadows. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic rhythm warning me to escape the woods. I glanced at my camera. The display showed I'd taken one picture, but I felt a restlessness welling up inside me. I needed to see what I had captured. I hastily navigated back to my tent and turned on my lantern. The light flickered unsteadily, casting long shadows that danced around me. I opened the camera's gallery, my fingers trembling as I scrolled through the photos. The last one stopped me cold. The image was static, yet it felt alive. The figure I had seen was unmistakable now, standing just beyond the tree line. It loomed taller than any human could, its limbs extending oddly, almost gangly. There was something about its posture that sent a chill down my spine. It didn't belong to this world. I had to know more. Jake's warning echoed in my mind. Stay away after dark. Ignoring that dread felt reckless now. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside the tent, driven by a mixture of fear and curiosity. The night air felt heavy. I crossed the campsite and moved toward where I had spotted the figure. The humming had stopped, replaced by an unsettling silence. It was as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. Then I heard it, a whisper, so faint that I almost missed it. It was rhythmic, almost like a song. I focused on the sound, each note pulling me deeper into the trees. Heart racing, I followed it, the beam from my flashlight cutting through the darkness. After a few minutes, I came upon a small clearing I hadn't seen before. In the center was a massive tree, its gnarled branches reaching like skeletal fingers toward the sky. The air felt charged here, like something was brewing just below the surface. I shivered, sensing an energy that made the hair on my arms stand on end. Around the tree, the ground was littered with scraps of fabric and personal belongings, what looked like torn clothing, some old photographs, and even a few trinkets. Each item made my stomach clench tighter. Who had been here before me? What had happened to them? As if answering my unspoken question, I heard a rustle behind me. My heart raced, and I spun around, flashlight beam darting. It caught a glimpse of something, a figure moving between the trees. It was there again, watching. I stumbled back, slipping on the forest floor as I tried to retreat. The humming returned, more insistent now, wrapping around me like a shroud. Fear surged through my veins. I couldn't stay here. I turned to run. But the shadows danced with new life. I could feel it, hear it. as if the forest itself were alive and aware. I bolted back to my campsite, panic driving me. As I reached my tent, a thought clawed at my mind. What if I wasn't alone? What if whatever was out there followed me back? When I finally zipped myself inside my tent, I could barely breathe. The humming faded into the distance, but it left behind something worse, a feeling that the woods were not finished with me yet. I lay in my sleeping bag, the night air thick with tension. Every creak of the tent and rustle outside sent jolts of fear through me. I clasped the edges of the sleeping bag, trying to steady my breathing. It felt like hours before I dared to peek outside again. Finally, I summoned the courage and unzipped the tent flap just enough to poke my head out. The moon hung low, illuminating the campsite with a pale glow. Shadows clung to the trees, but the figure was gone. I felt both a surge of relief and an eerie emptiness settle in my stomach. Then I noticed something glinting on the forest floor. I crawled out and carefully approached the clearing again. As I got closer, I saw it was a small metal object. My flashlight beam bounced off its surface, revealing a locket half buried in the dirt. Could it belong to someone who had been here before? With trembling fingers, I dug it out, wiping the dirt away. I opened it cautiously, and my breath caught. Inside was a faded photograph of a young woman smiling at the camera. Her eyes seemed full of life, but they felt oddly out of place, juxtaposed against the surroundings. I glanced around, suddenly feeling watched again. Could the humming have been hers? As that thought crossed my mind, the air around me shifted. The wind picked up, sending a chill down my spine. The faint whispering I had heard earlier returned, this time louder and more insistent. It wasn't just a song, it felt like words. I tried to make them out, but only caught fragments, swirling in and out like smoke. Then a branch snapped. I whipped around, pointing my flashlight toward the sound. The beam landed on a figure, not just a shadow this time. It was real and closer than before. I felt my skin prickling, urging me to run, but I was frozen. A low, guttural sound rumbled from it, almost growling. Was that coming from the figure? I darted back toward my tent, adrenaline pumping. I could hear it moving behind me, branches cracking under its weight. I tucked the locket into my pocket, determined not to lose it. But my fear consumed me, quickening my steps. The campsite came into view, and I burst inside the tent, fumbling with the zipper and yanking it shut behind me. The tremors shook my body as I dropped the lantern. It rolled away, casting erratic shadows along the walls of my tent. I could hear something outside, shuffling closer. My mind raced. What did it want? Then it hit me. The photographs littering the ground in the clearing. Were they remnants of previous campers? My heart sank. Perhaps they didn't leave voluntarily. The whispers grew louder now, circling the tent like a storm. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping it would just go away. But as I listened harder, I started to discern the words. Join us. That's when I heard the unmistakable sound of claws dragging against the fabric of the tent. Panic gripped me. What if the figure wanted to pull me out? My heart raced as I grabbed the flashlight again, aiming it at the zipper. I needed a plan. I couldn't stay here. It was now or never. With one deep breath, I flung open the tent flap, ready for whatever might come next. And just before I stepped out into the darkness, I noticed something on the ground. A single, tattered piece of fabric, gently fluttering in the night breeze. It looked like it belonged to someone else. I stepped outside, the cool breeze biting at my skin. The world felt heavy, the shadows longer than before. My heart thumped in my chest, but I forced myself to focus. The fabric fluttered before me, a lifeline in the chaos. As I bent down to inspect it, I realized it was part of a shirt, faded and torn. Whoever it belonged to must have had a wild time here, but the thought brought a wave of dread. I could feel it lurking in the dark, that presence. I stood up, keeping the flashlight steady. Each beam flickered across the trees, searching for signs of movement. The whispers still lingered, weaving through the night air, urging me. Join us. Was it really a plea or a threat? I felt trapped, like a moth drawn toward a flame. I gritted my teeth and took a few cautious steps into the clearing. The locket inside my pocket felt heavy, a reminder of the woman who smiled at me from within it. I wondered if she too felt the pull of this place. Suddenly the wind changed direction, whipping the trees. I spun around, flashlight slicing through the darkness. That's when I saw it, a glimmer in the bushes, not too far from where I had found the locket. My breath hitched. It was another object, different but familiar, half concealed beneath the fallen leaves. I moved toward it, an invisible tether drawing me closer. Kneeling down, I brushed away the leaves to reveal a compact mirror, smudged and cracked. I opened it, and the reflection caught me off guard. I wasn't alone. Behind me stood the figure. My heart dropped as its silhouette emerged, towering and featureless, just an ink blot against the light. It didn't move, but I could feel its gaze drilling into me. I should have run, but curiosity held me there. What did it want? The mirror felt cold in my palm. I held it up, and within its broken surface there were flashes of movement, hazy figures swaying gently, almost dancing. I squinted, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. They looked like campers, people gathered around a campfire. In that moment their faces softened into familiar smiles. Every instinct told me to flee, yet I felt drawn into this spectral gathering. The whispers became louder, filling my ears with their chant. Join us. I backed away slowly, unsure if they were inviting or ensnaring. That's when I stumbled over roots, falling back against the ground. The mirror slipped from my hands, shattering against a rock. A gasp escaped me, and suddenly the whispers stopped. The air thickened, heavy with the weight of 1,000 eyes. The figure moved closer, its outline still indistinct but growing feral. Fear consumed me again, and I scrambled to my feet. I turned to run, abandoning the clearing, my heart racing with every step. I didn't look back. As I dashed into the trees, I cursed myself for being reckless. Why had I stayed? Why hadn't I just run when I had the chance? But it was too late. The darkness enveloped me like a shroud, and the whispers returned, echoing even more urgently now. Join us. I had to find safety. But deep down I knew I was far from free. I ran, branches scraping against my skin as I pushed through the underbrush. The whispers followed, a haunting melody urging me deeper into the woods. I stumbled over roots and rocks, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I didn't dare stop. I had to escape whatever it was that had watched me from the shadows. Then I broke into a small clearing. My flashlight flickered and I panicked, pounding on it in hopes of getting it to work. Suddenly the beam concentrated on something, a strange figure at the far end of the clearing. It was tall and human-shaped, but its features were obscured by the gloom. "Don't," I shouted, not knowing if anything could hear me. I wasn't even sure who I was calling to. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it raised a hand and a chill swept over me. My knees buckled, and I hit the ground hard. "Join us," the voice echoed, but this time it wasn't just whispers. It came from everywhere, swirling around me. I covered my ears. The sound was overwhelming, vibrating through my entire body. When I looked up, the figure had vanished, but the whispers remained, almost like they were pulling at me, encircling my mind. I crawled backward, my hands brushing against the dirt. I needed to get out. I had to find a path back to the trail, some semblance of safety. Then I saw it. Just beyond the trees, a faint glow flickered like a candle. It could be a fire, or maybe a camp. Relief surged within me. I forced myself to stand, retracing the glow as quickly as my shaking legs would allow. Each step felt like an eternity, each shadow a beckoning hand. As I neared the light, I heard laughter. It was a soft, inviting sound, so starkly different from the cold whispers of moments ago. I stumbled into the small clearing to see a campfire sputtering in the center. My heart leaped. People were gathered around it, chatting and roasting marshmallows. They looked completely normal, yet I felt a nagging unease wash over me. "Hey!" I called out, voice trembling. "I need help!" They turned, expressions shifting from friendly to confused. One by one they stood, bathed in the flickering light. They smiled, but it didn't reach their eyes. I felt that same sense of dread creep up my spine. "Come join us," the tallest one said, his voice smooth but somehow slithering. "No, I can't," I shouted, panic overtaking me once more. I turned to leave, but the moment I did, their laughter morphed into that same whisper, echoing all around me. "Stay with us." A cold hand brushed my shoulder and I yelped, spinning around. It was the figure from before. I realized it was cloaked in darkness now, closer than I thought possible. I backed away from both it and the fire, fear clawing at my throat. Then everything went dark. The fire flickered and dimmed, and I was swallowed by shadows. I felt a grip tighten around my wrist, and fear surged through me. The voices grew louder, blending into a single chant. "Join us! Join us!" Adrenaline shot through me, and I tore away from the grip, running blindly into the thickening shadows. There was no turning back. I had to find my way out, but in the pitch black, I felt utterly lost. That's when I heard it. A soft voice, almost soothing. "You can't escape." I froze, caught between the lingering light and the encroaching dark. I had to make a choice, but the choice felt impossible. I was trapped. A flash of light burst through the blackness. Suddenly, I was back in the clearing, gasping for breath and soaked with sweat. The campfire flickered back to life, but the people around it were gone. I blinked, scanning the edges of the clearing for any sign of movement. The wind rustled the leaves above me, but otherwise the silence was deafening. I had to keep moving. I pushed myself to stand again, my legs unsteady. The whispers were quieter now, but I could still feel their presence lingering just out of reach. I took a hesitant step toward the fire. Something was off. The crackle of wood and the warmth of the glow felt too inviting, too familiar. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. I stumbled back into the trees, determined to find the path home. The faint glow dangled like tempting fruit, but I fought against the urge to approach it. The shadows continued to flicker with strange shapes, and my heart raced at the thought that the figure could be watching from somewhere in the darkness. I made my way deeper into the forest, carefully avoiding the thick underbrush. My mind raced with thoughts of the figure's voice, the ominous chant. "Join us." Were there really people out here, or had I imagined the camp and the laughter? I didn't have time to ponder it further. Every sound felt like a threat. Then I heard something different. It was a low thud, rhythmic and steady, like a heartbeat echoing through the ground. The sound drew me in, and against my better judgment I followed it. Each beat resonated within me, pulling at a sense of familiarity that made me uneasy. I found myself kneeling before a small pit. It looked like a recent fire pit, surrounded by charred logs, but it was empty, cold to the touch. Above it hung something that made my breath hitch. An old, weathered doll with blank eyes, swaying slightly as if moved by an unseen hand. Confusion and fear mixed in my gut. Why was this here? As I reached out to touch it, the thuds grew louder, now accompanied by a low-pitched hum. I jerked my hand back, scrambling away from the pit. "Stop!" I shouted, clearing my throat as if voicing my fear could dispel it. The ground beneath me trembled, and I glanced back to see the shadows shift and swirl around me. I was not alone. Panic swelled in my chest. A glimpse of movement caught my eye. The figure I had seen before emerged from the trees, its face now more defined, but still hidden in darkness. "Help me!" I yelled, but my voice felt weak. The figure raised a hand slowly and I stumbled backward. The hum intensified, vibrating through the air with an unnatural energy. "Stay!" The voice from before echoed again, blend with the thud reverberating around me. The urge to run washed over me, and I turned, darting into the thick trees. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out the hum. As I fled, I felt the cold breath of the woods wrapping around me. Just as I thought I had escaped, I tripped over a root, tumbling into a small ravine. I landed hard, fear flaring within me. That's when I saw it, a pair of glowing eyes staring back from the shadows. The last trace of hope flickered out, leaving me in complete darkness. I was trapped once again. I held my breath, staring into the darkness where those eyes glinted. They were unblinking and seemed to absorb what little light filtered through the canopy above. A low growl escaped from the shadows, breaking the eerie stillness. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to get to my feet, slipping and sliding on the loose dirt. In the claustrophobic confines of the ravine, escape felt impossible. My heart raced and instincts kicked in. I had to get out of here. I was not about to find out what those eyes belonged to. With the ground shuddering beneath me, I turned and clawed my way up the side of the ravine, digging my fingers into the roots while glancing back at the source of that gaze. Suddenly, the growl stopped. There was only silence. I hesitated, my body tense and ready to run. It was too quiet. Then I heard it, something slithering through the underbrush behind me. I wanted to look back, but a deeper instinct urged me to keep climbing. With a final push, I pulled myself over the edge of the ravine and collapsed onto the grassy ground. I rolled onto my back, panting. The woods around me were alive with sound again, but the eyes were gone. I forced myself to sit up, scanning for any sign of movement. That's when I noticed something on the ground next to me, a small silver object. Cautiously, I reached for it. It was a locket, partially buried in the dirt. As I brushed off the grime, it swung open, revealing two small photographs inside. One was of a girl with long hair and a bright smile. The other was a photo of a campfire, similar to the one I had seen earlier. My mind raced. Had someone been here before me? Questions bubbled up in my mind. Who was she? What happened to her? A chill crept up my spine. I quickly closed the locket and shoved it into my pocket. I stood up, my legs shaky beneath me, and started to walk away from the ravine. The rhythmic thud returned, low and distant but growing stronger. I picked up my pace, the fear propelling me forward. I had to get back to where I had come from, but the path felt foreign. Faltering, I stumbled into a small clearing, illuminated by the moonlight filtering through the trees, and then I froze. In the center, surrounded by stones perfectly arranged in a circle, stood the campfire I had seen before. It was lit again and crackling. The warmth drew me in even as the whispers danced around me, calling my name. "Join us." They beckoned, but I felt an almost magnetic pull toward the fire. I fought against it, stepping back, heart racing. Just when I thought I was safe, the shadows elongated and twisted around me. Figures began to emerge from the darkness, their forms indistinct, but their intent menacing. I took a cautious step back, the locket pulsing like a beacon in my pocket. Suddenly, I realized I was not alone in my fear. I felt the presence of others alongside me. Then everything went dark. I gasped for air as the darkness wrapped around me. Was it night? Or had I simply lost all sense of time? Panic gripped me and I reached out blindly, trying to grasp something solid. I could feel the ground beneath me, cold, damp earth. I pulled myself into a sitting position. Hello? My voice shook in the silence. No answer came, just the rustle of leaves and the faint crackle of the campfire fading behind me. The memories of those eyes and the shadows flooded back. I wasn't alone here. I struggled to my feet, feeling the coolness of the night air prick at my skin. I squinted, trying to see through the thick, engulfing darkness, but it was pointless. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. Then, a sound. It was faint, like whispers, but they were different this time. They didn't call my name. They were speaking to each other. "What did you see?" a voice asked, shaky and anxious. "I swear it was there," another replied. "I felt it watching us." Just as I took a step toward the sound, a figure stepped out of the shadows. A girl, just as startled as I was. Her eyes were wide with fear, and strands of hair fell messily over her brow. But she looked familiar. I'd seen her face before. The girl in the locket. "Who are you?" I managed to say, my voice a whisper. "I'm Laura," she said, her breath catching in her throat. "I was here a few nights ago with my friends. We camped right by that ravine." She pointed behind me, and memories of shadows flooded my mind. "Have you seen them?" I asked. "Your friends?" She shook her head. "No, I thought I was alone. I went to find them, but something's wrong here." "Tell me about it," I said, glancing around nervously. There were these eyes, and a growl. The ground rumbled beneath us, knocking us off balance. I grabbed her arm to steady myself. "What was that?" I whispered, fear rising in my chest like bile. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here." Laura's eyes darted around as if scanning for danger. She looked back toward the fire, where the stones still gathered around the flickering flames. "It'll be safer there, at least for now," she urged. We moved cautiously, adrenaline fueling our steps. As we neared the campfire, I noticed something odd. The flames flickered in shades of green and blue, casting unsettling shadows. It wasn't just a fire. It felt alive, almost sentient, like it was watching us. "We shouldn't be here," I murmured, my instincts screaming at me. Laura nodded, scanning the edges of the clearing. Suddenly I spotted movement behind a tree, more figures, shadows shifting, becoming more defined. They were watching us. Then a piercing scream rang out, echoing through the woods. I recognized it, a sound that pierced my heart. It was close. "What's happening?" I gasped, fear clawing at my throat. "I don't know," she said, her voice trembling, "but we need to run." Before I could respond, the campfire flickered violently. And then, just as it had ignited, it went dark, plunging us into a black void. I felt the weight of those eyes upon me once again, a shiver creeping down my spine. "We have to find your friends," I urged, desperation creeping into my voice. "They could be in danger." But Laura was already backing away, her face pale. "I'm scared," she said, fear evident in her eyes. "What if it finds us too?" And that's when I heard it, a slithering sound, creeping ever closer. I felt a chill twist in my stomach as the sound slithered through the darkness. It was too close, too intimate, as if the forest itself was coiling around us. "We have to move," I urged, trying to sound braver than I felt. "Maybe if we stay together we can—" Before I finished, the darkness blossomed with a low, rumbling growl, echoing across the clearing. My heart raced, and I grasped Laura's arm tightly, pulling her toward the nearest tree. We huddled beneath the thick branches, our breath shallow, both of us painfully aware that being discovered felt like a certainty. "What is it?" Laura whispered, the tremor in her voice matching the frantic rhythm of my heart. "What do we do?" "I don't know," I admitted, squeezing my eyes shut to shut out my anxiety. "I just know we can't let it see us." As we pressed against the rough bark, the whispers grew louder, an endless chorus of voices orbiting around us. Just when I thought I might spring from my skin, they merged into one commanding phrase. "Join us!" The echo resonated like a painful song trapped inside my mind. No. I shook my head violently, forcing myself to focus. I glanced at Laura, her wide eyes reflecting the flickering of our previous campfire. In that moment, I felt a connection, an urgency to protect her. We had to find a way out. Maybe we can find the trail, I murmured, thinking aloud. If we can just make it to the edge of the woods. But the ground beneath us rumbled once again, cutting through my thoughts like an axe. My instincts screamed to run back into the shadows. We have to get moving now. Pushing away from the tree, we stumbled forward together, navigating through trees that loomed ominously, stitching an intricate web of shadows. What had once felt familiar now seemed alien, the forest twisting into a maze around us. Every crack of a branch sent us into a flurry, and with each passing moment I felt the presence behind us creeping nearer. Whether it was the figure or something altogether worse, I couldn't tell. Panic surged in my chest, filling my lungs with a desperate need to escape. Look, Laura pointed up ahead. A glow not too far off flickered through the trees. I squinted, but uncertainty pulsed through me. Was it the campfire again, luring us back in? Or was it the exit we desperately craved? Should we go toward it? She asked, uncertainty clinging to her voice. It's better than staying here. I grabbed her hand, and together we sprinted toward the light. The distance closed quickly, illuminating our path, but the whispering behind us grew and swelled, drowning out all reason. As we broke into the clearing, the light that enveloped us faded into the shapes of tents and sleeping bags sprawled out beneath the canopy. Campers' laughter echoed through the air, the comforting sounds of normalcy, but something was amiss. The fire flickered with an odd palette of colors, unsettling in its vibrancy. We weren't alone. Figures moved around the camp, but as we approached, a sinking dread tugged at my stomach. They turned toward us, faces eerily familiar, the very same figures from our earlier nightmare, their features more defined yet clouded with an unsettling calm. "Join us," one voice called, drawing my attention like a moth to a flame. My heart dropped. I caught glimpses of Laura's frightened face, mirroring my inner turmoil. "No," I shouted defiantly, taking a step back. But the moment I did, everything went cold, like plunging into icy waters. Suddenly, the figures faded into shadows, their laughter echoing in the distance, and a dread-filled fog rolled in, enveloping us both. Laura clutched my arm tightly, and I could feel her trembling. "Keep moving," I urged again, urging her toward the far side of the clearing. But as we ran, the shadows twisted and merged into a dense thicket, blocking our way. I spun, searching for another exit. "What do we do?" I screamed, panic clawing its way up my throat. "Somehow we have to, I don't know, call for help," she shouted back, her voice laced with desperation. "Help!" I cried, facing the endless thickness that surrounded us. The darkness fluttered, momentarily parting, revealing a path that glittered under moonlight. An escape. "Over there," I shouted, pulling her in that direction. We took off, but with every step the whispers intensified, murmuring promises that made my skin crawl. A shadow loomed behind us, more overwhelming than before. "Stay with me," I yelled, not knowing if it was to Laura or the unseen danger. The path narrowed, and I could feel fingers of darkness reaching for us. The whispers no longer edged into my mind. They surged like an all-consuming tide. "Join us! Join us!" We sprinted closer, nearing what had to be the wood's edge. And just when hope flickered to life, I felt something cold brush against my ankle. I couldn't suppress a scream as Laura's grip slipped from my grasp. She was pulled back. "Laura!" I lunged, but the dark hands gripped fiercely around her waist, throwing her back into the shadowy embrace. I reached for her, desperate, but that terrible humming surged again, fluttering around my ears like a swarm of gnats. "Join us." "No," I screamed, a raw mix of horror and determination pushing me forward again. Laura's frantic eyes met mine amid the chaos. The whispers deepened, but they were drowned out by my own voice, in the raw, primal instinct to survive. I couldn't save her, not from whatever horrible force had claimed her. I felt the shadows grasping at me, but I pushed through the edge, flinging myself into the path where moonlight bathed the trees in silver. The echoes of her cries faded behind me, swallowed by whispers that warned I was never truly free. I stumbled but kept running, fear surging, my chest tight with panic. The woods shifted and twisted, but I didn't look back. I didn't turn to see what had claimed her. I emerged from that dark embrace, stumbling onto the dirt road, heart pounding in my ears. I was alone, breathless, and as I turned back to gaze toward the ominous trees behind me, all I heard was the faintest echo of a hum, lingering like a memory I was never meant to leave behind. I moved to a different city soon after. I don't remember packing, but I remember the photos. I often find myself wondering if I should have opened that locket, or what would have happened if I hadn't returned to the wilderness at all. But mostly, I try not to think about Laura, or if she is still out there calling me into that darkness.